We are rolling on June 8th on part 2 of our oral final on critical thinking, what we learned, insights about Passmore and critical thinking, our BS detector, what we got from Milgram and authority in critical thinking, and did we follow the format? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you continue, please?
Yes. As my BS detector, the main instrumental thing to develop my BS detector that I experienced was our journaling, particularly the journal topic of questioning someone's evidence. I remember I was sitting in a social setting with friends, and we were just talking about things like sports, stories of other friends, past experiences, and as I was sitting there, I was filtering in and seeing like how much BS evidence that they give for any just even day-to-day life claims that they would make. Another thing was the Milgram Experiment on obedience. After watching this video, I realized that, and I started to question, my parents or even older friends or teachers even, and I started to notice, that everything they say shouldn't be taken for granted. But in conclusion, the title of this course, is named Principles of Argumentation. As the title suggests, that this class is really about teaching students how to argue. And in my experience of the course, critical thinking, improving speaker credibility, and developing a BS detector has been instrumental in my growth in argumentation. And although it might not be conventional college material like sciences or math or English courses, it is one that I believe that is critical in life as a whole and will serve a great benefit. So my salute to you, Professor Miller, for all your service to the craft.
Thank you. Aaron, you'll be on 2 tapes. Okay.
Let me take that one. Professor, you take this one.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to Ian Greer. Hi, Ian.
How you doing?
How's your guns?
Guns?
Guns and Roses.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah.
We'll live and let die, baby.
Live and let die. Yeah. Okay. So what color am I?
Oh, live and let. Welcome to the jungle, baby. Oh wait, who does that one? Huh?
Oh wow, you're tall.
Guns and Roses don't. Guns and Roses don't do live and let die. I agree.
I'm going to have to go into the office.
Totally feel you.
We don't have more time.
What?
Do it, comrade.
Can you slightly move that way?
To the right?
No, this way. Yeah. That's good, yeah. That's perfect. Okay, Mr. Greer, begin.
Alright, so the title of my speech is Meta-Analyzing My Knowledge from This Quarter. And so my debate topic, I'm going to start off with my debate topic, was scientists can successfully predict future climate events using computer models, as you know. If you're a person who does not believe this to be true, then you hate all of humanity. That would be an example of a fallacy in communication called the straw man fallacy, which is the misrepresentation of an opponent's view. Straw man fallacy is one of many fallacies I learned over the course of this class, and fallacies are one idea of many. After completing this course, through lectures and readings, a well-researched debate, argumentation journals, and reading on Teaching to be Critical by John Passmore, I've learned a variety of beneficial ideas. These ideas have helped me navigate course topics and will continue to help me navigate life topics. Alright, I want to start with the 3 major lessons I've learned from Professor Miller's lectures and engaging in his readings. The first is how to make a strong argument through assertion, reasoning, evidence, and impact. The second, the 4 steps of refutation. They say, but we disagree, because, and therefore. And the third, the 3 dimensions of credibility: trustworthiness, expertise, and dynamism. These 3 dimensions have helped teach me how to deliver my points, and as well as how to successfully judge each speaker's credibility in each debate. Additionally, with that, I also keep in mind to question authority in speakers based on studying the Milgram Experiment and do that a lot based on judging speaker credibility learned from Miller. Miller also stressed the importance of knowing your audience, which allowed me to create a debate, argument, and refutation my audience would support. Now I'd like to move on to the debate. The first strong new lesson I attained from a debate is meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is the idea that scientists can take data and results from multiple graphs, regardless of whether or not each individual graph can successfully predict future climate events, and combine them in order to make successful predictions about future climate trends. Additionally, from the debate, I learned a lot of common political jargon, I think, that is used commonly and thrown around in climate change discussion and debates politically. Some of these are climate forcing, decadal patterns, and global climate models, or GCMs. And I also learned of the El Nino Southern Oscillation Cycle and its effect on global temperatures and trends. Now I'd like to move on to John Passmore's article, which I've learned a multitude of. From Passmore, I learned we should embody critical spirit rather than the critical questioning of others, and we should not be overly critical of others. He embodies the critico-creative thinking rather than critical thinking in order to be appropriately critical with people. And to do this, you must strive for consistency in your thoughts and actions, base your judgments on your individual values. And finally, the last most important thing I learned from Passmore is the value in debates, because it helped allow my BS detector to evolve. Over the course of this quarter, this class helped my BS detector evolve as well as expand. The culmination of the three preceding lessons I've listed, lecture and reading, the debate, and on teaching, has helped my detector to evolve. By using meta-analyses with all of the information I have learned, I was able to combine all the different information I have learned throughout the quarter and piece it together to learn that my BS detector has grown. And I would say that the most important part of learning that my BS detector has grown was that I was aware of the BS detector before this class, I feel, but I would say that Passmore might have called my BS detector then querulous or arrogant or pedantic, and now I'm more conscious of engaging in critical spirit. Alright, finally, I would like to say after completing this course, I am able to say with confidence through meta-analysis, grouping of all various parts and beliefs about the vast knowledge I have obtained this quarter, and obtaining one final result, I can show I have learned many important core concepts that have brought success in my class and will bring success in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Appreciate it. Yep. Okay.
So before we begin,
Class, come to order,
before we
please.
begin, instead of like saying how much I learned from this stuff, I decided I would apply it to what I see on a daily basis, and because I believe you can apply to something and understand something. So from the class, I learned that what is the fundamental difference between BS or any kind of logical basis? The fundamental difference is that it's when there's a disconnect between truly understanding something and the perception that you actually do understand something. Now, in relation to this class, I'm going to also talk about how like the issues today, such as economic difference, gender difference, and racial difference happens on the daily, and how that perception of we really think we understand something applies to these issues. Now, back to Professor Miller's generation, they face issues such as KKK, and a lot of extremist racist laws that target African Americans. However, the issues today, I think, is so far smaller than what the issues he faced. With movements such as Black Lives Matter, I actually believe that instead of uniting racial inequality and other issues, they seek to divide it and create separate tension between racial and economics. Now, going on, I believe that the fundamental difference between now and Professor Miller's days is that instead of the issues that we're talking about, because the issues are the same, just another form. What has changed is how we react to these issues. So according to Passmore, to call a person critical is to characterize him, to describe his nature in a sense, which is to describe him simply as capable of analyzing certain kinds of fallacy. So it should become so inherently nature to you that it should be like speaking English. It should not be even like guessing anything. Unlike if you just take another foreign language, you know how difficult it is to speak it. Now, going on to my first point, I believe that the root of inability to critically think comes from mass media today. What do we see on social media daily? People from our generation has grown to the point where information is obtained through social media platform rather than actual news. On Facebook, we see BuzzFeed, titles such as Top 10 Reasons You're a 90s Kid. What are the relationship advices you should be looking for? Who do you identify with most on Gossip Girl and Serena, by the way? So like what these do is actually like it's a huge confirmation bias. It's a huge and the knowledge of confirmation bias actually makes us feel better. So the more we read into these articles, the more we feel better ourselves, and that's a huge problem. The second issue of internet is the anonymity that comes with it. With anonymity, it gets with the human interactions that we used to see between protesters. So instead, what we have now is just anonymous people posting on forums about what they think is important in the world today. And that's really important because it gets rid of the thing that makes us human. The human fact that each other, the understanding that we all have similar issues, that we all go on this journey in life facing different kinds of issues, whether it's making enough money or it's trying to understand, LGBT rights. These are all issues that everyone has to deal with. And the third issue is that there's no incentives for us to challenge our opinions anymore because of the instantaneous nature of technology. Imagine if you just got an argument with your boyfriend or girlfriend. You just Google, what should your boyfriend be doing in this relationship or girlfriend? Or top signs that your relationship's in danger. So these apparent cycle of reaffirming what you think are important is causing us to not challenge our beliefs and instead sticking into a shell that has confined us and our knowledge and our ability to critically think about what's truly important. I think that's really dangerous. An example of this is that I heard a couple weeks ago a UCLA professor was actually accused of being racist by an African-American student because he corrected his spelling on his test or something, which I found really bizarre. So that's a root reason that I believe that we see the huge, extreme reactions from even the tiniest subtle microaggressions. And I call them microaggressions just based on events such as that. So therefore, what we need to go from onwards is actually to question our authority. And going back to Milgram, instead of internalizing orders to follow a command, we've now internalized all the sources and the lack of authority figures in our life. So what we need to do now is question our authority figures, change the way we read news, and above all else, understand that we all humans, we all go this bad thing called life, and just get ups and downs. And that's what's really important. Thank you.
We're going to have a 2-minute stretch break. So, stretch.
I'm just gonna put my selfie doll right here. Elizabeth, I forgot to email you and ask you if you got mine, so can I email you today? Oh, okay.
I also emailed mine too. I got yours. Okay, yeah. I just gave you a hard copy. Yeah. Sorry. You got mine? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Is that a midterm?
Sorry,
Midterm. For your final classes.
Really?
Okay, and then you wanted yourself. Yeah, I got it. Olivia, I got it. Yeah.
Were there supposed to be one for the debate and one for this?
No.
I also wanted to ask if you got.
I'm not reading it. I was just looking.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I was just looking what it was. I didn't know. I was like, oh.
It's what I sent you last night.
What'd you say?
I sent you the schematic.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't see what you. I wanted to see what you were grading it out of, or like what the different like the.
It's got 100 points.
No, what the grading is. Like what the different boxes were for. That's what I'm looking at. Like what each one was for.
Now you know.
What? No, I didn't look at it.
Definitely that's what
Professor, I sent you an email last week, but about the debate group individual report. Should I go to one of your other makeup speeches or just do it today?
Well, if you can do it today, that would be better.
Yeah,
Can you?
I mean, I brought both of them with me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we'll see. I guess we'll see how much time we have.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Do you want students to do 2 self-evals, one for the debate and one for Tuesday's speech? Because that was
Yeah.
I didn't do it. I
didn't know.
Yeah, I wanted everybody to evaluate their speech, so do that, and if you have to, send it to me via email.
Wait, what do you mean?
Your speech on Thursday.
Okay, Elizabeth will clear this up.
So I pretty much got everyone's evaluation for the self-evaluation for the debate that they did, but I guess Professor Miller also wants a self-evaluation for the speech that you did on Tuesday. So you guys can send that to me by email.
So you can grow more.
It was like a.
Oh, sorry, it was the Thursday speech. Yeah.
And we don't have to do one on
Your reflection speech.
Okay.
It's the same format.
Email it to Elizabeth.
2 an hour ago.
Okay, the next 5
Yeah.
are
I gotta end by the weekend.
Elizabeth, Lauren, Alexia, David, and Baz. Baz.
I think I'd like to go on a test.
You want it?
I mean, use button.
You like it? Oh, it's from Hyatt. Yeah, it gives me happy memories.
Outline.
Are you Elizabeth?
No, quick for
Are you talking about papers?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, Elizabeth, you sit in this seat.
Okay.
that's it. He takes out lines and then just let him do it.
Okay.
And then this is the individual reports. These are last Thursday.
Okay, so just get those separate.
Okay, good luck. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. Okay, house come to order, please. We're about to hear from Elizabeth, who's going to tell us about critical thinking, what she learned, what she knows, her insights on Passmore critical thinking, BS detector, the Milgram Experiment, and did she follow the format?
Hi everyone, I'm Ellie, and before taking this class, I consider myself a pretty easily trusting person. I'm quick to believe people, and I usually don't need much to convince me of things, but if I've learned anything in this class, it's that we should be skeptical and accepting excuses right off the bat, and learn how to detect BS so that we're not taken advantage of by others. The ability to think critically should not only be considered a useful skill, but should also be acknowledged as a trait that is necessary in fostering genuine relationships and interactions. For me personally, I have benefited from learning how to detect BS in multiple aspects of my life, including my friendships, my academics, and my interactions with authority figures. So, here's a short little story. When I was first starting our argumentation journals, I was learning about excuses, and I had a situation with my best friend Shannon where I was pretty sure she was lying to me, so I decided to practice kind of calling her out on her BS. One night I wanted Shannon to come to a fundraiser with me, and she immediately responded that she had an MCAT prep course at the exact same time. Normally I would have believed this, but just in the previous week Shannon told me that she's actually not starting her MCAT classes until after spring quarter ended. So using what I had learned in this class, I started questioning Shannon by saying, where is your class? How long will it take? How many people from UCLA are in your class? And then when I started doing this questioning that Professor Miller taught us, she had this kind of scared look on her face and admitted that she really just didn't want to go to the fundraiser at all. So by questioning Shannon's evidence, I kind of got our relationship on more honest terms and realized that people are very frequent to use BS in their excuses. I think these skills of critical thinking and detecting BS have been especially important in our in-class debates in deciding who was the winner of each argument. John Passmore argues that being critical is not only being capable of analyzing certain kinds of fallacy, but it further allows people to challenge ideas and increase knowledge. This has particularly proven to be true throughout our debates, as critical questioning has helped everyone to gain a better sense of issues surrounding global warming. For most debates, I actually ended up voting for the team whose evidence stood up best against criticism. So I think that Passmore's statement that the critical spirit cannot be misused should be a central theme of this class, because being appropriately critical of both ourselves and others has allowed everyone to develop stronger arguments overall. But all this being said, being critical in our daily lives is not always an easy feat due to the influence of restricting factors. One of the most convoluting factors in our ability to criticize and detect BS is the presence of authority, because people are not as likely to question someone who seems to have power or control over them. Stanley Milgram explained this phenomenon in his famous experiment that focused on conflict between obedience to authority and personal conscience. After examining how far people would go in obeying an instruction, even if it involved harming another person, Milgram found that ordinary people are likely to follow the orders of an authority figure. In Al Gore's movie An Inconvenient Truth, I think this was exemplified because he is a well-recognized authority and people were very quick to believe him in everything he said without really questioning it. But Milgram's conclusion is pertinent to this issue because it kind of proves that an authority can prevent us or impede us from questioning all the information that we receive on a daily basis. So overall, I think that a key part of developing my BS detector was learning to expect BS in my conversations with others. I now have more of an internal doubt when listening to the reasons people provide, and I'm often tempted to question their evidence. I've determined that it is more dangerous to assume that people know what they're talking about than to have them prove me wrong. So after 10 weeks, I can confidently say that I've learned to think critically and be skeptical in my daily interactions, and I'm definitely not as gullible as I was when I started this class. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Gotcha, Lauren. Perfect. Okay, almost. Oh, Lauren, rock and roll.
Okay, so when I was 12 years old, I told my mom that my favorite word was recalcitrant. And my mom loves to tell the story because, for those of you who may not know, to be recalcitrant means to have an obstinately uncooperative attitude toward authority or discipline. My mom laughed at this, but she wasn't surprised because growing up I had a long history of confusing what other people call rules with what I like to call guidelines. And I used to get in trouble a lot because I just kind of had this like innate tendency to challenge authority and to break the rules. And even though this may have gotten me into a lot of trouble when I was younger, I realize now that being recalcitrant is merely a pretext to critical thinking. Now, coming into this class, I thought that critical thinking was a scholastic skill, like something that we learn in the classroom, something that I had mastered like in my classes from my ability to take like vast amounts of information, kind of like boil it down to the most important points, and then apply it to a broader concept. Furthermore, I thought being critical was a negative thing, like being too critical is something that you should like avoid interpersonally if you want to have good relationships with other people. But after this class, I learned that critical thinking and being a critical person involves so much more than just simply these things. And in John Passmore's article on Teaching to be Critical, he says that critical thinking is all about asking questions, challenging people's reasons, so on and so forth. And to quote him, he says, "To exhibit a critical spirit, one must be alert to the possibility that the established norms themselves ought to be rejected, that the rules might be challenged." So it seems to me that being critical isn't all that unlike being recalcitrant. If you're being uncooperative towards authority for a reason that you think is a good one. Now, throughout our work with climate change and our debates, kind of continued to expand on what I thought critical thinking was, and I know now that it's all about like asking questions, seeking reasons, like figuring out which reasons are good, which ones are bad, which claims you're going to adhere to, and which ones you're going to reject, and also, like in the Milgram Experiment, shows that it's all about challenging authority. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are aware that UCLA recently signed a $280 million deal with Under Armour, and the campus community got an email about this recently. Please forgive me for not speaking extemporaneously as I read part of the email. The subject is, "Our landmark new partnership with Under Armour. Beginning July 1st, 2017, Under Armour will exclusively design and supply cutting-edge performance training and game day uniforms, footwear, and apparel for each of UCLA's 25 athletic programs. On a broader scale, Under Armour will offer annual internship opportunities for university students, while UCLA will continue to enhance its allocations to campus recreation and other club sports teams, Also, UCLA Athletics will continue to share retail royalties with the general student body, ASUCLA, blah, blah, blah. He goes on to say, make no mistake, this is exactly who you want to partner with. Some closing remarks. Thank you for your support. Go Bruins. Love, Dan Greer, the UCLA Athletic Director. Now, I don't know about you guys, but after going through this class, my BS detector is just kind of going off like crazy when I was reading this email. Because we have a person who comes, like in the Milgram Experiment shows, from a standpoint of authority. And I think that by like addressing our community like this and telling us like this is the benefits of this deal, the administration and like other authority figures on our campus are trying to stifle debate about this, and they don't want us to think critically about like, okay, is this actually where the university's resources should be allocated? But instead they're just kind of telling us like how we should think about it. And like in my personal opinion, I don't really agree with this. I think that even though they say it's going to benefit like our community in general, that they're probably just going to pump like all the money from this deal back into the athletic program, and that putting this type of thing out to us is kind of like undermining our ability to critically think about the issue. So in closing, I will continue to be recalcitrant or uncooperative towards authority because blind cooperation, like in the Milgram Experiment, is not a foundation for critical thought.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay. Okay, you're supposed to be lined up over there. Okay, rock and roll.
Alright, hi everyone, my name is Alexia.
Hi,
I'm going to start
Alexia.
off with a quote from Arne Tassilius, a Nobel Prize winner, who once said that we live in a world where unfortunately the distinction between true and false appears to become increasingly blurred by manipulation of facts and by exploitation of uncritical minds. And he's right. After taking this class and reading John Passmore's article on teaching to be critical, I see the critical spirit as necessary so that we don't passively absorb information from authority figures. Critical thinking is really our only defense against manipulation. So today I'm going to share with you 3 things. First, what I've learned. Second, what I now know. And third, how my BS detector has evolved. So according to Passmore, a critical person must possess initiative, independence, courage, and imagination. I know you'll all be interested in what I have to say because as UCLA students, I know we all have the critical spirit within us. So first, what I've learned. After taking this class, I've learned what it really means to be critical and its importance. Critical thinking is creative, independent, and courageous thinking. Watching Milgram's experiment showed me that without the critical mind and the courage to disobey authority, human beings can be very easily manipulated. Milgram was prompted to do his experiment because he wanted to know how ordinary people could participate in horrific Nazi crimes, like sending people to the gas chambers and doing crazy experiments without anesthesia. So without a critical mind, people can be manipulated to do horrible things and not even think twice about it. All of that being said, those people were exactly like you and me. So the whole situation just highlights to me the importance of being extremely critical in a world where it takes individual people to turn a blind eye and be complicitous to allow other people to be taken advantage of. So second, what I now know. Now I know that obedience to authority is so deeply ingrained within us. And on top of that, I know that for a long time, I haven't been using my critical mind very much at all. For the past 2 years, I've either forgotten about or turned off my critical spirit altogether. I realized this quarter that I've let myself become so passive and I've not been alert or critical at all. I haven't thought about this in years, but I was a badass in middle school. I remember being a 7th grader and wanting to be on the boys' flag football team, but it was only for boys. So me not being one to take no for an answer, I set up a meeting with my principal and pled my case to her. And needless to say, I made the team and I kicked ass. Because I knew this was...
Go, girl!
So I don't know what happened along the way, but I seem to have lost that fire within me. But so this particular quarter, so at the time, I turned off my critical spirit and I simmered down. But at this point, I'm starting to feel myself coming back. I'm highly critical and I question everything. Now I know that when it comes to the critical spirit, use it or lose it. So now I'm going to share with you how my BS detector has evolved. Now my BS detector goes off all the time. My favorite phrase has become fascinating claim. Got any evidence? Now my ears are open and I've been given all the tools to use my critical mind. My BS detector has built up resistance to passively just absorbing information from authority figures. But now that I'm being called upon to make up my own mind, I realize that it's scary to face situations where, authorities disagree. It's scary to not know the right answer because there might not be a right answer. But at the same time, through all of this, my BS detector's use is only going to expand because I will never stop questioning, never stop thinking critically, and never stop thoughtfully questioning authority figures. So in summary, I have shared with you what I have learned, what I now know, and how my BS detector has evolved and how I'm going to continue to use it throughout my life. There should be no doubt in this room that I highly value and embrace the critical spirit within me and within all of you. So as Untitled once said, we live in a world where unfortunately the distinction between true and false appears to become increasingly blurred by the manipulation of facts and by exploitation of uncritical minds. So I urge you all to stay critical because the humanity of our world depends on it.
Perfect. Thank you, Alexis. Very nice.
My name's I have these things for you guys.
Great.
If I'm next
Sing. He's gonna sing. He's gonna sing his.
Is it me? Is it David Gottlieb? Am I next?
David Gottlieb is next.
Fantastic.
David Gottlieb is next. Let's see, what color am I on? Red. Okay, rock and roll.
Hello everyone, my name is David Gottlieb. My favorite activities are watching sports, going to the gym, hanging out with friends. My favorite ice cream flavor is cookies and cream, and I am still a Jewish kid from the San Fernando Valley. My main thesis is that this class has taught me various different systems of how to think that I feel will rescue me from the evildoers out there of indoctrination and persuasion. While I didn't really take to debate. I've never taken debate throughout high school or college. I think that the most valuable part of this class is really how it taught us how to think, because we're going to be thinking in more than just a debate system. What have we learned? That will be my first little post. What do we call it? Where you
preview?
Sure. So the thing that I've learned is that when we're evaluating ideas, the first thing to do is decide whether or not there is a debate to be had. With really simple claims, I don't think it's necessary to debate everything. However, if you can look at a claim and think, maybe that's not as objective as you think it is, it's important to break it down into the fact, value, and policy. With fact debates, I found that fact debates are kind of the least common in everyday life. It would get very obnoxious to sort of question every fact everyone gives you. I think that we accept a lot of facts. I think that we should accept a lot of facts. Like, it's hot outside today. Maybe don't wear that jacket is just a decent fact that's worth accepting. But they do come up. I'm going to continue with the baseball example throughout the course of my speech because I'm a big baseball fan. Steroids make baseball popular. Factual claim. It's got both sides to the issue. You could talk about the ratings during the steroid era in the 90s. You could talk about how much families hate baseball because of our kids are looking up to these juiced up steroid monsters. Policy debates I found are probably the most common in everyday life, just because policy debates really do answer the question of what do we do next. I think that policy debates can tackle something as trivial as what are we going to get for lunch, and something maybe a little bit more important like nuclear policy. We're going to find it right in the middle back to baseball. Baseball should crack down on steroids. This is a policy debate that was really more prevalent in the early 2000s, and even looking back on it, I don't know that we're really sure that they made the right choice. I think that policy debates are a lot about solvency, and you have to sort of make a prediction, which we've talked in class is a very difficult thing to do. And I don't know whether or not the right prediction was made. People are saying baseball is boring now. People miss the home runs. Anyway, and then the final one, obviously value. I found that value is common, but not quite as common as policy. The thing about value is that I hesitate to call it a debate in everyday life just because I don't know that it really gets anywhere. It seems like value is easily the most subjective of the three. I can have my hierarchy of values, you can have your hierarchy of values. And at the end of the day, it's very hard to sort of push people away from that. People are stubborn about those. a solution, just to continue with my metaphor, saying steroids are bad for baseball. You know, a lot of the same points I brought before. Is the popularity more important than it being clean? You know, who am I to decide? Beauty is the eyes in the beholder when it comes to value. But really, all of these different things made me think about persuasion. We talked about the big persuasive appeals. For me, ethos has got to be number one. Didn't see pathos appear a lot in this class. I don't think a lot of us made very emotionally driven decisions. I don't think emotionally appeals were very powerful. I do think that they're powerful in more everyday life, more interpersonal things. Logos definitely was able to draw merit. I think that if people had really solid logos, they were able to do well. But for me, it was a lot more about how you presented yourself. For me, this sort of goes back to my journals and the Milgram Authority one. I realized that people were sort of jostling for ethos, and the ones where people were giving reasons, people are sort of jostling for that authority to give them that ethos, to give them the credibility. What do we know now? We know a lot about climate change. My specific research has taught me a lot. And we also know how I think the media has sort of influenced us, not only overtly in things like The Inconvenient Truth, but also a lot more covertly. Movies like Interstellar, Avatar, kids' movies like WALL-E are sort of after us all the time. I believe I'm out of time now. I have more.
You have 15 seconds,
I have 15 seconds. Also, don't listen to people who are financially invested. They're just salesmen, just like everyone else. Ad hominem and ad populum fallacies appear in everyday life pretty frequently. To talk briefly about Passmore, this class and Passmore makes me think that critical thinking is something that can be learned, and that we should all exercise that muscle. And I thank you all for being involved in the process by which I learned how to be a better critical thinker. Thank you very much.
Is it everyone 4:15?
Yeah, it's always been.
I thought it was 4 minutes.
4 minutes, 15 seconds. They get 15 seconds to finish up. Grace period. Okay, now we'll hear from Bez, Alexandra, Jeremy, Kai, and I can't pronounce this name. Bianca, 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 Ms. Butler. Okay, class, come to order. Oh yeah, this is impressive. Oh, he's got it written.
Do you want that one? Or
Yeah. Okay, we're class, quiet please. Okay, rock and roll.
Hi everyone, we're here today on a beautiful sunny day in Los Angeles, gathered on the 8th of June, and we're kind of coming to the end of my journey, and the end of your guys' journey, and the end of the journey of the whole class. And I wanted, at the end of this journey, to reflect on critical thinking. And I also kind of want to say, just to start off with, you can tell with everyone else in the class, and hopefully with me and me too, everyone's kind of argumentation and critical thinking skills have definitely visibly improved. So, just kind of start with how I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk about adherence. I'm going to move on to John Passmore and how he considers indoctrination. Thirdly, I'm going to go to personality and the cult of personality. And fourth, I'm going to go on to the BS detector. So, with all of this, I'm going to make references to the American presidential debate because I think it's a nice natural experiment and something nice that everyone can talk about. And you may say that it has flaws, but I say that that just reflects real life. And that just reflects how the nature of audiences are. So, with adherence, firstly I want to talk about Milgram with adherence, and I want to say that the idea of authority is very important, and we can see that in American presidential debates, and people who come across as having more authority, it gives more weight to them. But then we should also question this. Does coming across as having authority, is that a good thing? So I'm going to talk about how adherence is important. So we would like in these American presidential debates for everyone to talk about what their policies are, how they think, and then everyone in the audience just decides who they align with the most, and then we're done. Whoever has the most votes is the best. But in actuality, what we see is people trying to get one over each other. We see people trying to get what I termed in my essay net wins. So people try and get a win in a small part of an argument over another candidate. And then the person with the most total of this net wins, they come across as the winner. And ultimately, often it doesn't depend on how well you argue, it just depends on how well you get these net wins and how you can get one over on someone else. And this kind of goes on to my point of adherence, And you need to know your audience, know the American public, either Republican or Democrat, and you need to know what's going to be popular with them and what's not going to be popular with them. So you should be saying what's going to be popular, and sometimes being aggressive comes across as popular, and this kind of feeds into that whole authority thing. So secondly, I'm going to talk about John Passmore and indoctrination. So, okay, and so I'm going to read out a quote, and he says that a student who studies all of his works, he argues, has such a person learned to be critical? The answer, I should say, must clearly be in the negative. And that, I think, is a testament to this adherence, this idea of adherence. The idea of argumentation is something that's dynamic. You can't learn how to argue because you need to know the audience for every single interaction that you have, and you need to gain their adherence. So I don't think it's something that you can just learn that easily. And secondly, with the indoctrination of audience, I would like to say that this kind of goes on to another point with, and I'd like to bring this back to the American general public, there is an idea of people being indoctrinated and they're not changing in their ideas. And I want to say that this kind of argumentation where no one's prepared to change their ideas, I think that's a big flaw. And that's one of the biggest flaws in presidential debates, not just America. And the fact that when someone changes when a presidential debate changes what they think, they're seen as flip-flopping. There is no actual possible way of changing what you think. So there's no way of actually gaining adherence, so you can't be constructive. Really quickly, I'm going to talk about personality. I've kind of talked about it a lot, so I'm gonna like mostly skip it out. The cult of personality is very important. We see it in the American presidential debate. People are voted on because of their personality and not because of their policies. And finally, I'm going to talk about the BS detector. So rather than referring to it as the BS detector, I'm going to refer to it as the internal process of filtering out irrelevant information. And I want to talk about some common things in that. So personally, what I did to BS all of you guys is I avoided the question with regards to of rising sea levels. Everything I could find was against me, so I avoided the question. Secondly, you can do the opposite. You can talk too much and try and lose everything in the middle of it. Thirdly, you can use one example, which seems like it covers everything, but it actually doesn't. And finally, I kind of want to talk about how you can fix this BS detector, and that's through recalibration, and that's through watching a lot of arguments, and this will recalibrate your BS detector and try and see these common mistakes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bez. A little long.
Professor, I have a question. Do you have 4 minutes or 5 minutes?
4 minutes, 15 seconds.
On the
and your 15 seconds is, I know it said 5,
okay.
But I announced 4 in the email that you got last night at 4 a.m.
Was it really at 4 a.m.?
No, you sent the 4 minute.
4 minutes?
Earlier.
Yeah, earlier.
Like last week.
4 to 5 minutes in the syllabus, but then you emailed us saying 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Greer.
You're welcome, Mr. Miller.
Okay, let's go.
How many more are there?
It's Alexandria. Is Alexandria in the house? The big zero.
I don't know why this is there. Sorry.
Okay. Jeremy.
Is this the final one?
Yep. Okay. Let me just get myself situated here.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Jeremy, and first off I want to thank you all for being here for what is actually the last assignment of my UCLA career. Now I'll provide you guys, thank you. I'll provide you guys with evidence of that because I know how important that is in this class, but I won't have my diploma until this weekend, so either way we'll get back to that. This speech made me think back to one of the first assignments of my UCLA experience. For some of you guys, you probably remember this as well. We went to orientation, there was a tour we took. Our task was to discern which of the things that they told us was a lie. Well, in fact, all of the things that they told us were lies. But that didn't stop my naive freshman self from taking a picture next to what I believe to be Jim Morrison's locker. I would later find out from my tour guide they have a collection of such pictures in a GroupMe or something. But why would I believe this? Why would I believe such, like, obviously false statements? A person buried under Jan's steps, you're not going to just walk on them, you know what I mean? Why are we believing this? Well, I can honestly say that as I stand before you today, and especially through my last quarter here at UCLA, I've learned to resist such logical fallacies. Well, Professor Miller refers to them in a different term. He calls it your bullshit detector. I feel like my bullshit detector has improved thanks to 3 sources. One, being on Teaching to be Critical by John Passmore. The second, being from the Milgram Experiment, and that is that the blind trust of authority is dangerous. And lastly, from takeaways within this very class. In his article on Teaching to be Critical, Passmore discusses the negative side of teaching children to adhere to habits. He talks about an experiment in Australia where he basically says that a formal education limits one's capacity to think critically. He argues for the importance of critical thinking and being able to understand that all of our answers are not going to be found in a book. Well, this is important for all of us, and especially for those of us who are getting ready to embark in the real world and leave the safe realm of academia. Not all of our answers are going to be in a book, so it's important that we make sure that we get all of our tools necessary for critical thinking and we're able to actually take on these problems as they come, because some of our greatest situations are things we're not habitually meant for. Choosing a spouse, deciding like which of our friends we can trust versus others. These are not like innate qualities in us. These are things that we must work towards and hone our bullshit detector. Building off of Passmore's warning about the importance of critical thinking, you have the Milgram Experiment. I'm not going to go into detail about it, we all remember what it was, but what did we learn from it? Well, they were actively trying to seek out information about why people would be complicit during the Holocaust. It's such horrific events when they have these moral obligations to doing so. Basically, why did they obey authority despite moral conflictions? Well, Passmore would suggest it was their inability to think critically. Milgram, however, suggests that obedience comes from the desire to free ourselves from responsibility, as well as from a habitual habit that we learn at a young age to basically bow ourselves away from an authority figure. If somebody's in a perceived position of authority, we just listen to their word as final, and we don't question it. We don't think for ourselves, is there merit to what's being said? And that's really an issue. Either way, this is an issue that I've learned to recognize, thanks in large part to things that we learned in this very classroom. I'm going to talk about 2 things from this class that helped me to learn this. The first of which coming in the form of our assignment journal. We were given the task of basically questioning somebody's evidence. Maybe you guys have a friend like this as well. Somebody that just makes statements and they kind of give off the vibe that it's just a universal truth. You should know this. Everybody knows this. They're arrogant bastards. For me, it's my friend David McGrath. David the other day was ranting on about how we all know that we're going to be using self-driving cars within the next 20 years. Everybody knows that. Well, fortunately, I've taken this class, so I wasn't about to have any of McGrath's bullshit. And I immediately questioned him. I said, wow, David, that's a fantastic claim. Do you have any evidence for that? Of course, his immediate backtracking was all the signal that me and my friends needed to prove. He actually, in fact, does not have evidence for this. And that just goes to show the importance of not just, accepting these casual statements as fact and taking them, with a grain of salt. Actually looking up and doing your own research and seeing for yourself. In closing, I provided 3 examples of how I learned the importance of a BS detector. From Passmore, from Milgram, and from this classroom. Evidence comes in many forms, though in this class we only care about that is relevant and recent, peer-reviewed. Well, let's talk about evidence in the form of a diploma. Such a document is only granted to an individual that has earned the recommendation of esteemed faculty, members of this university, through the completion of at least 180 units of coursework. Such evidence is relevant in supporting the notion that my UCLA experience is complete. Now let's go graduate.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, that brings us to Kai.
There you go.
All right, class, come to order. Quiet. Okay, rock. Oh, this battery is. Guess what, Kai?
you want to put this like over here so it doesn't get in there?
I'll give it to Elizabeth.
This is like for the other class. So
Oh.
I was just looking at it because it was like over
Oh,
here
yeah.
and it was like in the
Okay,
pile.
thank
So I was
you.
like, I don't know if it should be in there.